housing the next big real estate boom? It's possible. When the job market is tight, a lot of adults look back at universities and colleges to re-up their education, to pursue advanced degrees, to stay competitive. So while universities are looking to fill their classrooms, a lot of investors are looking to make a profit. Real estate investment advisor Chris Tucker says there should be a way to close the gap and build more housing. Chris is here to explain exactly what you do. What does Innovative Property Group do in Philadelphia? Why are you guys tackling the student market?
Well, we're focused on typically redevelopment opportunities. Investors that were originally first in to capture the easy money, they kind of lost track of what the students actually needed. They were just trying to cram as many bedrooms into a unit as possible.
Right.
And while that worked at the start, right now, as far as how fast the technology advances and all of that, students are really looking for what some of the bigger institutions provide. So we go in and try to close the gap with the redevelopment to basically create another opportunity.
So you have universities that are getting more money, more streams of revenue basically, and they're trying to compete by providing nicer venues, nicer facilities for their students. So you guys get in there and say, we can make this better and make your university more attractive?
Well, universities are experiencing budget constraints just like everyone else is. So universities have to choose whether they're going to build more classrooms to capture more revenue, or are they going to expand their what we call beds. And most universities are choosing classrooms, which leave an open gap for investors to come in and provide good quality student housing for the incoming students. You can't typically have a university that doesn't offer housing. So there's a large gap there for some universities for investment opportunities.
But how does that work with right now a lot of young adults, including those in college, deciding to stay at home and live with their parents while pursuing an advanced degree? There's obviously budget constraints on the individual too, as well, right? How does that play into your investment environment?
Well, you have to look at what type of school is it. Is it a commuter school? Is it a rural school? Or is it an urban school that has high barriers to entry? If kids are coming in at an urban school, there's not a whole lot of places that a university can go, so a lot of their open areas get built into classrooms, whereas the student housing market for the individual investors, they can go in and turn houses and do the development side for the university. But if you're in like a rural area, then the university as well as large institutional investors have plenty of opportunity they have a lot of land and a lot of development opportunities. So it all depends on the individual market that you're in.
So what are you finding? Where are you guys doing the most robust business right now? Is it urban? Is it rural? What does it look like?
I like the urban market because of the high barriers to entry. A university only has so much space, and are they going to choose beds or are they going to choose classrooms? And most of them are choosing classrooms because it's a higher profit center for them, as well as they're experiencing budget constraints, which are typically used to revamp their dorm environment. And instead of doing that, they're revamping their classrooms in order to stay competitive with other universities.
That's so interesting. What do you think about that decision? I mean, and how do you raise the capital in order to pursue these huge projects? Because we're talking about a lot of capital up front to renovate a building or a section of a building, right?
Yes. Well, we use private investors' money to come in and do the renovations. Investors are out there, they have their money in the stock market and other paper type assets, CDs and all those type of assets. And real estate really offers a higher rate of return than what they're currently experiencing somewhere else. Plus, it's a safer investment because it's solid. There's something that they can see, and they can actually choose where it goes instead of having someone else choose it for them.
So you're saying the university market for investing in the revamping of these dormitories is safer and better than the current retail housing market in general?
Well, real estate in general is very localized. You can't really look at the national scales. You have to look at what is happening in the individual location. But student housing goes one step further, and you can literally have two universities in the same city but have two vastly different markets.
That's true. That's really true. You have a really interesting story. I mean, you've landed here at Innovative Property Group, and you're doing this really interesting work in the real estate sector. But you are a veteran, is that correct? Are you active duty?
I was served in the Air Force for 8 years.
And then you are now at the University of Pennsylvania pursuing a degree in economics, and you're also doing this real estate work. Why did you decide to go that route? Why was it so interesting to you?
Well, when I was military, I loved serving the country, but I got tired of living paycheck to paycheck as well. So on some of my moves and stuff like that, I left behind houses that I had that in the current real estate market I couldn't necessarily get rid of. So I started looking for other avenues, which the rental market. So I tried the rental market out. I saw what kind of money that you could make, so Real Estate Investor was born at that point.
Interesting. And how would you characterize the last year or so in the change in the real estate market?
The real estate market is changing a lot. We are experiencing quite a recovery. The properties are going for record sales prices. So you really have to get into the market, but you also have to look at other factors, because just because a market seems to be oversupplied or there's too much activity going on in one market doesn't necessarily mean that there's not an opportunity there, which is how we found the student housing redevelopment opportunity.
So one last question for you. We have to talk about millennials and buying homes, because the current rate of individuals like us actually purchasing property is actually pretty low. A lot of that has to do with student debt. What's your take on the current climate? Do you think it will get better anytime soon, or are we headed for something that's worse?
Individuals are still a little scared based off of what we just went through with all the short sales, foreclosures, all of that, but confidence is regaining into the market. You're starting to see it in certain areas, in certain places across the United States, and that will flow across the board as more jobs come in, as more employment opportunities are available. So real estate in general is a very good investment, especially getting in on the bottom side when it's just now experiencing recovery.
So you don't think, though, this millennial issue of not purchasing homes and cars will actually have a material impact, a long-term impact?
No, it kind of goes in cycles. You just kind of have to look back on how it was. We go through this cycle. So the last 10 or so years, this has kind of been the norm, and then it will become popular again, and then it'll crash again. We kind of created ourselves, but as long as you follow the trends of what's going where and who's moving where, then real estate in general is still a very good market, as long as you do your homework.
Interesting take, because I think that never before have students of the 18 to 22 demographic ever been mired in so much debt for anything. No. And so it does seem like, given the interest rates and how things are going, that actually may be a longer term impact. There are people, economists, who do believe this. I mean, is there a specific example you're pointing to as a cycle that shows that we'll recover out of this?
Well, you just kind of have to look back for market cycles. I mean, you have the dot-com crash, and then you have the crash after September 11th, and then you had the 2007, 2008 crash. So the market just kind of goes in cycles, and you just have to follow what is going on in the cycle, what we're doing to create it, and be ready to enter and exit the market as your homework kind of dictates.
Interesting. Well, Chris Tucker, thank you so much for joining us. A fascinating conversation about the university real estate market and beyond. Check out Chris's company. It's at ireip.com. We'll see you next time.